Let's call the meeting to order. All those that can stand, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
All members are present and accounted for.
Okay, got a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion approved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Yes. Are you gonna vote, Joe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, consent agenda approval.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth? Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, announcements and information inquiry. Already had some inquiries, so I wanted to fill everybody in on that. Up on the wall here is a sign that says Highland. That is the actual depot sign from the depot that no longer exists from our train station. So that was a gift from Roscoe Smith, who stole it when he was 7 years old. Not really, but so he wanted Highland to have that, so I told him that I engraved on the back of it who it came from, and he gave it to us on Halloween. So I'm not sure what that means, but we will have a frame made for it and a plaque that states what it is and where it came from, and so pretty historical piece there. Okay, the township office will be closed on Friday, November 10th in observance of Veterans Day. Dedication of flags will take place on Veterans Day, November 11th, which is Saturday, at approximately 10 a.m. at Veterans Park, which is located at the corner of North John and West Livingston. Following the dedication, a brief Veterans Day ceremony will take place at 11 a.m. The dedication is for the flagpoles that were put in by our Eagle Scout candidate, who is in the room today. So, and I hope everybody can at least make an attempt to get out there. It's pretty impressive. Brian, did you want to talk about Friday for
Thursday.
Veterans Day?
Tomorrow?
Friday.
Oh, his school is
Oh,
tomorrow.
yours is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yours is tomorrow. Oh, okay. We want to talk about that.
Well, we're having our ceremony at Lakeland tomorrow. Anybody's invited if you'd like to come. Sorry for short notice, I guess. Our annual, Joe came to me about 9 years ago, and we started doing this, and it's at 11. It starts at 12:20 at Lakeland, 12:20 to 2 o'clock. So if you'd like to come, you're welcome to come. I know Milford has theirs on Friday
Milford's
in the
Friday.
afternoon. I think they start.
Well, same time, about your 11:15
Yeah.
ceremony, about 12.
Joe's done a great job. To speak for Joe real quick, I know that he's expanded now, the Oak Valley, Oak Valley, and
Near Oak Valley, we do Rose Pioneer, we do Davisburg Elementary, we do Independence Village of White Lake, we do Abbey Park. We led the Detroit Veterans Day Parade for the 12th year from our community, our post. So we're deep, okay? We'll do a lot of things. Plus the dedication of flags. And the Marine Corps lead ball. Any Marines in the honor today? Any Marines?
It's a honor.
Make sure you honor a Marine on November the 10th. Right? Otherwise they get mad at you.
Yeah, I'm a daughter of a Marine too, now that I think about it.
Okay.
And thank you for all that you do.
I have something
Too,
to
Sean.
Tammy?
We've been informed by GFL that our compost has been extended 1 week, so they're going to be picking up compost for 1 additional week. The last day for pickup will be Friday, December 8th. And then also, did you want to talk about the combined meeting on January 18th for the planning and zoning?
Yeah, January 18th, it's a Thursday at 7:30. The Township Board and the Planning Commission are going to have a joint session to talk about vision and try and get on the same page as to where is Highland at, where is it going, talk about just about anything that anybody wants to bring up. So it's kind of an open session for the two boards. It is open to the public. It's not meant to be a public free-for-all, but you're welcome to at least come and hear what we have to say, and it doesn't mean that we won't take comments.
And that meeting will take the place of our second meeting in March that we had originally scheduled.
So that'll be like our extra workshop meeting. All right, public comment. Anybody have public comment?
I don't know.
Names and,
The podium?
Hi, I'm Suzanne Gabely. I am the president of the Highland White Lake Business Association, and I'm going to introduce you to Amy Grzymkowski, who is our director of the Highland White Lake Business Association, to do a little presentation.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come, and we just really wanted to thank the Highland Township Board for your support over the years. We really believe that business is an important part of our community, and we appreciate the fact that you have embraced that and you've embraced us, so we'd like to thank you. Tonight we have 3 awards that we would like to give to 3 members of your board. 2 years ago I joined the HWLBA and I didn't know a soul, and about a month and a half after I joined, we had the unfortunate fire at Highland Feed. About that time, we started the Highland Feed reboot, and I had the opportunity to work closely with Rick Hamill. Rick decided to take me under his wing, and in doing so, he introduced me to many people, many of you actually on the board, and others in the community to help with that connection for the Highland White Lake Business Association. It was during that time that I got to see Rick's passion for this community and his heart. It is rare to find people who put themselves out, who go above and beyond, if you will. Rick is dedicated to the businesses of this community. The board of HWLBA, all of its members, and the businesses of Highland would like to acknowledge Rick for, and we call it the Above and Beyond Award. This past week was a great example of that. We had a ribbon cutting at Jenny's Ugly Pies. Rick was instrumental in bringing Jenny's to Highland. Jenny was just basically baking out of her home, and she said, I want to live and I want to work here in Highland, and Rick went to great lengths to help her see that dream come true. It isn't just that he goes above and beyond, but he takes these businesses under his wing and he begins to mentor them. He knows, he was a businessman. He gets the difficulties that businesses face every single day. And so for that, we would like to thank you for your dedication, and for that we would like to say thank you for going above and beyond. Secondly, Judy Cooper. Judy Cooper joined our board a little more than a year ago, and it has been my great honor to become her friend. I have known Judy for this last year, and I will tell you, I am amazed at her level of expertise. She brings something to our board that we've never really had before. Judy will tell you, I'm not a business person, and yet she seems to know what business people need. Her relationship with Oakland County and the resources that she's able to provide have given us an opportunity to really expand the organization. I took a really long time with Rick, and I'm sorry. There's so much more I could say, Judy. We love you, and we love that you've gone above and beyond, and for that, we give you this award with our great thanks. Certainly not least, I stand here today because of Tammy Flowers. Tammy was the director of the Highland White Lake Business Association, and when I first came, all I heard was Tammy Flowers, Tammy Flowers, Tammy Flowers. I felt like, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. And yet, it was well deserved. Tammy is instrumental in keeping this community informed, keeping them connected, her expertise with social media, just the way in which she works. It is a testament to the fact that she is sitting here as clerk today. I have appreciated her mentorship. I have appreciated her advice. And the HWLBA is all the better for having Tammy Flowers. So for that, and for all the many things that you do, for going above and beyond, we would like to thank you and to give you this award.
Thank you.
There you go, and I would like to have you all stand and we can take a picture of all of you guys. Thank you. The whole board. The whole board.
Board?
Yeah.
You want the whole board or not?
You want the
Yes,
whole board, right?
yes, we would love the whole board.
Let's squeeze it in.
Do it, turn it this way. Okay, you look at her first.
I got it right side up.
Okay.
I don't want to cut anybody out.
Shit, this is tougher than. Okay, you got it? Okay. You can all look at me. You're smiling chopper. You guys look all great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You did not pay for that.
No, I did not.
Who told them they could leave?
Oh, boy. Caught me off guard on that. Public comment, yes. Name and address, please.
1528 Middle Road, New Hansford. It's a hard one to follow there. Well, I hope the three in-house officials that were out here will go above and beyond on my request tonight and everybody else. I want to address again Resolution 1716, which is an increase in the trash collection for 2018. It was approved October 11th, 2017. This is an increase of $150 to $165 per household. Yesterday I was in a community meeting with a retired Highland Township person, and she said to us in the community meeting, you know, I live on $120 a month, excuse me, $1,020 a month, and I challenge you to live on $1,020 a month. And this really hit home for me because, you know, we have probably more than we want to admit a lot of residents in this community that live on a very small income. And this increase in the tax or the fee for the trash is going to be pretty painful for some of those people. You know, lots of people aren't going to care about it. There's people like me who can't justify it because I know that we have the money to pay for it. And I just can't come to grips with it for myself. So I'm really asking you to reconsider tonight this resolution based on the fact that we do have the money to pay for that increase. I've been coming to these meetings since 2012 pretty regularly. You know, I've seen a lot of different spending projects. New employees have been hired, replaced. We've added new programs. We've got all of the offices pretty much back intact from 2012. In other words, the township's been pretty much made whole. And I'd like you to make the taxpayer whole on this issue. We have money, and I'd like you to take care of that bill. This coming year, the budget projections for 2018 are coming in at a higher level. Everybody knows these, I'm going to mention them again. Sales tax is coming in at 1.5 million, possibly 1.6. Our property tax, $425,000. That's a $25,000 increase coming from the taxpayer. The franchise fee, $290,000.
It's time.
I'd like to also mention that we had a $1 million surplus this year that we rolled into capital funds. And it's a pretty nice, a lot of money, pretty nice piece of money to have left over at the end of the year from the taxpayer.
Lynn, that's time.
Pardon me?
That's 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
We did your 3-minute timer.
Time's
3
up.
minutes.
Please don't be rude to me. I'm gonna finish, but I am gonna finish this. Thank you.
Lynn, we have a 3-minute time limit.
Excuse me, I'm gonna finish.
Lynn,
You know, I'm here.
Lynn, we have
I
a
got
3-minute
it.
time limit. We have another
I got it, Rick.
public comment.
I got it, thank you.
We're gonna try and respect everybody going
And I
forward.
will try to respect it as well, thank you. You know, a lot of the meetings I sit through here, you know, we pay all the bills.
Lynn,
What? You said 3 minutes, didn't you?
3 minutes
on.
is up. It's been up.
I thought I had 5.
Lynn,
No,
there's
it's
another
3
public
minutes.
comment at the end.
I thought I had 5 minutes.
No, it's 3 minutes.
Oh my gosh. I thought it was 5.
All right, any other public comment? Yes?
Okay.
Don't trip over your cord.
I don't know if you can see me over the podium, so I'm just standing right here. I'm Missy, 2558 Ivory Circle. I just wanted to talk to you about Small Business Saturday. It's promoted by American Express. Oakland County is jumping on and hosting a contest. So Small Business Saturday is November 25th. Comes after Black Friday. And what it's for is for independent retailers, restaurants, and services. So, you know, someone not Fantastic Sam's, but you're independent. So you, anytime you shop there between November 25th through December 2nd, you upload your receipt to Oakland County, and the instructions are back, it looks like this, and the instructions are on the back, credenza back there. You are entered into a contest as a shopper to win one of 3 prizes. Chance to win $5,000, $1,500. So it's pretty cool, and you're supporting your local businesses. Now in the spinal column, they put a great ad, so if you check your spinal column, Highland Township is also, Highland DDA is also doing a special here in Highland on Small Business Saturday, just one day. And there are 8 businesses that are participating, retailers, and it's a passport system. And you go and you visit, you get it punched, and you are also entered into a prize from Highland. So I don't know just how many yet. It'll be like at least 1 gift basket. I've had some gift cards come in. So just remember your small businesses this holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? All right, we're gonna move on.
Open trip.
I want to
Okay.
preface this with, this is a presentation by our health insurers. Since 2012, when I came into office, I just want the public to know that what happened was my health insurance premiums were $28,000 a year. That's what the township paid for me and my wife. I thought that was exorbitant. At the time, prior to being in office, my wife and I paid for our own health insurance, and we had a less than kings and queens plan, and we did fine with that. And I think it was about probably $5,500 a year. Catastrophic, blah, blah, blah. So what we did is each year since then, we have reduced the cost to the taxpayers by between 11 and 17%. And every year we've made reductions. And those reductions came because we asked our insurance representative, agent, to look into it. In fact, a year ago, over a year ago. We actually put it out for an RFP, which I think lit a little fire under our representative, and we happened to get some, I put the request for think out of the box. And what came back was our representative got out of the box, thought about it, came up with a plan that I think has been spectacular for the employees. It cut our costs again. And what it did is it allowed for our employees to have low deductibles, which is really what's important, because to have the really high deductibles that we would have ended up having, it made it really a ridiculous expense for the employees. It's hard enough to get by. But anyways, this Obamacare, as it's been called, the Affordable Health Care Plan, has been a tough nut on everybody. We got another year coming here, and we asked Jack what's coming up. We didn't want to change the plan, so it's kind of hard to modify that. And what came out of it was Jack Schmidt and
Paul
Seisland came forward to us to present us with some interesting options that once again are thinking out of the box. And so on that note, what I want to do is I want to put the floor forward for you guys to present to the board what you presented to the in-house officials.
Did you want me to stand or?
You can sit, you don't have to stand.
Doesn't matter to me. Well, I'll first start out with your renewal. We received your renewal probably about just about 4 or 5 days ago. So the February renewals came out from Blue Cross Blue Shield. You know, as Rick said, we've been representing you for years, and pretty much every year I work with probably over 100 townships in Michigan. And if I start to see anything around a 7% renewal or below, I consider it very good. I know on your side of the desk you don't consider it very good, but if I see about a 7% increase or lower, it's pretty good. You're actually getting a minus 3% or a 3% reduction this year, which is pretty unheard of in what I do. So it's actually going to be a savings of about $5,500 for the exact same plan. And as Rick said, last year we put in a health reimbursement plan. So a health reimbursement, or 2 years ago almost, we put in a large deductible, and kind of a brief description, you put in a very large deductible. So the employees were paying the first $250 as single, you go up to a $5,000 deductible. So in theory, the employees would be paying $5,000. It drops your health insurance costs, just like if you're homeowners, you went from a $500 to $1,000. You keep that savings as the employer, and you only reimburse back the employees that actually have claims. So if I had a $5,000 claim, I would still pay the first $250. You would reimburse me back as the employer out of that savings up to $4,750. The concept is only about 20 to 30% of the people hit their deductibles, and with Highland we've been running lower than that, so it's been really good. It's been saving quite a bit of money. So the positive news is we are saving $5,500 on the current plan, which is a positive because you're at pretty much the highest deductible. There really wasn't a lot that we could show you. So when we did start talking about how can we save money, what else can we do, there's really kind of locked into that plan because like I said, you're already at the cheapest of the plans. It's running favorable. We're getting a 3% reduction. So what I've been talking with other townships about, and it gets a little into the woods on this, but is looking at their cash in lieu of coverage. What I have is I have a lot of competitors out there telling townships, take your employees over 65 that are actively at work, give them money, and let them go on Medicare. It's a cheaper plan. Or incent them higher to go on their spouse's plan, which makes sense. But under Medicare, they have major or secondary payer rules. So if you're under 20 employees, Medicare is going to pay primary. So if you're under 20 employees, whether you're on your employer plan or they give you money, secondary is going to, or Medicare is going to pay first. The plan would pay second. So the government doesn't really care if you give them money to go on a different plan because they're going to pay first anyways because Medicare pays under 20 employees. If you're over 20 employees, your plan pays first. So Medicare does not allow you just to give money to take people 65 and over and put them on their plan. And it's not really an exception, but the alternative to that is the cash in lieu of coverage. So all employees are offered cash in lieu of coverage. I think in 2004, kind of going through the history of it, in 2004, Highland Township gave single people $1,000 a year, 2 people or family $2,000 a year cash in lieu of coverage. So whether on Medicare, if I'm married, I would look at taking that as opposed to you paying my premiums, and would I want to go on my spouse's plan? So in 2004 it was $1,000, $2,000. Last time you looked at it was 2007, which is the current policy, which is $2,000, $4,000. So 2,000 for a single, 4,000. So it's been about 10 years, going on 11 years since you looked at that policy. So when I'm looking at it, kind of consulting with you on what we could do, that's one of the areas you could look at. If I'm 20 years old, if you look at the age banding prices, and this is your brand new kind of renewal, so with the Affordable Care Act in 2014, before that, all plans had a single two-person and family rating structure, which was called composite rates. So it didn't matter if I was 24 or 64, as a single person, I paid the same price. Same thing with a couple. All couples paid the same price, all families paid the same price. Didn't matter if I had 3 people in my family or 12 people in my family, it was a family rate structure. Now it's all based on the individual wages of employees, their spouses, and dependents. So if you're giving me $2,000 and I'm 21, it's gonna be a lot more than if you're giving me $2,000 and I'm 41, or 51, or 61. So if you look at the different age banding that you just received, it's really not gonna be an incentive for 2,000 as I get 50, or 60, or 65 to come off your plan. So one of the things that we've worked with other townships is proposing going from a flat rate structure, which was based on the single two-person family, and going to a percentage, which is more based on the age banding of the Affordable Care Act. So proposing a 50%, and there is no magic number. We've talked a bit, there's really not a magic number. There's no 40%, 50%, 60%. It has to be high enough to incent the employee to look and see if there's an alternative, but still a savings to you as the employer. So if you're offering 50% of the premium, that's going to give me enough incentive as an employee to look to see if there's an alternative, but you're still going to pay 50%. What really isn't in that 50%, so you're also saving a lot, because I just talked about the health reimbursement account. It's not just 50% of the premium. You're also not reimbursing up to that $4,750 that you would be as a single, or $9,500 as a family. So that HRA could almost be as much, if not more, than the premiums. So the concept is also, as me as an employee, that is now taxable income. So some people might hear that, okay, you're getting 50% of a 50-year-old rate. 50-year-old rate is $403.26. So if you get 50%, it'll be $201 a month. That may or may not be enough to incent me to go off, but you have to remember that becomes taxable income to me, because that's the way cash limited coverage works. So you have to kind of structure it, and the way the age band are building, if you structure it as a percentage, it's complying with the law. If you said, okay, we're going to give everybody under 64 $2,000, we're going to everybody 65 plus $5,000, that's not complying with the law. You're incenting people to go on Medicare. You can't do that. But by tying it into the age banding rates and making a percentage, it's perfectly fine because it's consistent across the board. So that's really, right now, kind of this year in time, looking at it, it also helps, as Paul is more the Medicare expert, when we look at, some people have thought maybe it would be better if I want a Medicare plan than a current plan. Again, if you're giving me $2,000 or $4,000, it's probably not going to be enough money. His plans are generally running $270, $300.
Yeah, with Medicare.
With Medicare. So if you're going to be $2,000 and it's taxed, that's not going to give me any incentive to do it. I understand your plan. You're going to pay 100% of the premium as opposed to 50% of the premium. And more than likely, I'm going to hit into that health reimbursement account, so you're going to have some reimbursements back on top of that premium. So in looking for the way to save the township money and still stay compliant with the law, that's really the option that we came up with.
Do you have any projections of how many people that would be and what the cost would be? Or
I think Tammy puts together,
Right. We kind of ran some numbers. We have at least 10 employees who are over 60. So as they age into the Medicare, we have three potential people who could qualify for Medicare in this coming year. And so if those 3 were to elect to take the buyout, and we'd save 50% on all of their premiums, pay them 50%, and save not only the rest of it that we're not paying, but also save the potential deductible that we might have to pay if there were some health incidents. And not only that, the older our employees get, the more likely they are to have large health bills. And that will raise our rates because we're in a small group and it's gonna, it's gonna make our group look more risky, and then our rates will go up too. So the more we can do to move older employees off of our plan, the better it is for the township.
I know you've told us this before, but I can't remember roughly how many people do we have that receive it? We're
Or
over
taking
20?
the buyout,
No, the
or-
total
or on
people.
our insurance.
Yeah. Is
I'll
it
say it's
over
around,
20?
yeah, it's under 20. It's, I want to say
Wow.
around,
Are you talking employees or family members also, or
No,
just employees.
employees? Yeah.
I don't have that with me right now. It's out in the car, but I want to say it's around 17,
Okay.
so maybe less less than that. I
Actually,
might be
that
thinking,
sounds right.
yeah,
17.
think around that. So,
One of those 17, 10 are over 60.
are you at that age? So
Well,
again, you
that
cannot.
includes spouses, spouses would be in there too.
Yeah. So it's you might again any cash in lieu of coverage. If you keep it what it is now and you keep it at the 2,000, 4,000, you don't change it. It's still an option. You're just giving the employee an option. Do I want to take the cash in lieu of coverage, or do I want to stay on the plan? It hasn't been looked at in 10 years. It might make sense to increase it to have more people. Take away the Medicare, and I said we're really not supposed to be talking about Medicare because we can't incent them. That's why we have to keep it a percentage, so it's not being discriminatory. But take away that if you're giving me, again, if you're giving me 2,000, I'm 21, I might be able to do a cheaper plan. But if I'm more mature, and it might not. So as in the last 10 years, the cost of healthcare has gone up. 10 years ago, 2,000 might have sent me to go on my spouse's plan. Right now, it might not be enough. I might say, you know what, I understand your plan. Now you have 100% of my premium. Plus you have those health reimbursement accounts, which would be 9,000 on a family. So if you can offer it based in, tied into there, it would incent. Nobody might take it, but you're not losing anything as a township. You're just offering it. If you get 2 or 3 people to take it, then you're saving 50% of the premiums plus the HRA reimbursement. So I really don't see any downside, because if everybody declines it, you haven't lost anything.
What
Right.
about if we took this and, let's say that it turned out not to be a cost saving? Can you go back again, or you
Yeah.
can't? You can change.
You can change
You
anytime.
can change it.
Yeah.
The other thing to consider is that we have some people who have been doing buyout for some time, and it might be tempting to take them for granted and say, well, they're going to do the buyout regardless of what it is. But that may not be the case. They might have a spouse whose company could, the buyout can change from year to year, and maybe 2,000 is enough for them to say, no, I'll go on my spouse's insurance this year. But next year, the prices could change, and they'll be like, no, I'm going to come back on the township's policy. So just because they're currently taking the buyout doesn't mean they always will.
And changes things too. I mean, when I was at Bourbon Flower, but I'm still there now, but originally when I was there, they offered a cash in lieu of coverage. My wife was working. Their cash in lieu of coverage was more than my wife's plan cost. It was a better plan than ours. So it was pretty easy. You don't have to do what I do to figure this one out. I took the cash in lieu of I wanted better coverage. We had the twins. I stopped working. Now she's on my plan. So you do have different, beyond that, you have life-changing events. So it is open enrollment for January, so that's the time of year, one month that people can come on or off the plan.
So that's
So
why
that's
we
going to
need-
alternate every time. But as a board, yeah, you could always make a decision to, just as you made the decision in 2000, I think 14 was your last year, you can always make a decision in the future, if you don't feel it's working, to change it. That's your decision as an employer.
But I think the key thing here is that it's the difference in the way the healthcare plans are working now, that age banding that didn't exist. Then there was not, quote, an inequity between buying out a 28-year-old or buying out a 62-year-old. But now there's an inequity. And that's one of those things where if you do it based on a percentage, then that percentage follows that banding.
Follows the federal laws. So because you're not being discriminatory, you're not incenting a certain group over another group, because it's an even percentage.
And the other part is that we have, most of the employees are on full coverage for family and spouse. And if that incentive is enough to make them move to someplace else, then you can see a significant savings in that scenario. But each one is different. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you said most employees are on the insurance, we have 7 that take the buyout now. What's the cost of that gonna be? How much does that increase from what it is now?
We looked at, if we went to the 50%, we could be looking at, and some of these people are not in general funds, so we've got, fire, and we've got bus transportation, but,
We have 7 in the general fund. That's the only ones that I'm looking at right now.
right, I'd have to run that number. I mean, total for
If we're gonna look
everyone.
at what the cost is and how much we're gonna save, that's the increase in cost, because these people now are getting a 2,000 or 4,000 buyout, and they're gonna get more, you know, so.
They will get more, and that will increase our buyout costs, but it will directly decrease our premiums plus our
It doesn't
exposure.
decrease the premiums for the ones that are already getting buyout, that's a direct increase from the 2,000 to whatever half the premium. So I wanna know what that number is, so you get a true picture of what we're saving if we do this, you know?
You're saying we may save a little bit less.
We'll save a lot less than what you're saying, because all of those 7 people are gonna get more in buyout than they're getting now.
Sure.
Mhm.
So I'd just like to know what that number is.
Of course, at
before
any
we-
point, they could elect to begin taking coverage again.
Of course they can. That's always been the case.
Mhm.
The other question I have for
Yeah.
Jack is when, I remember when we dealt with, it was agent before you, we were not allowed to have anybody that was working full-time on Medicare. Has that rule changed then?
You're allowed to, because there's 2 ways you can go on Medicare. If you can always do it. They can opt out. So for employers that are, if I'm paying a percentage of my premium, even if it's 1%, then it's my decision if I want to come in or not, because I'm contributing towards the cost of the insurance.
Okay.
So when you're paying 100% of the premium, or even if you're paying 90 or 80% of the premium as the employer, if you pay 100% of the premium, the government considers a right of employment. You're paying 100% of the premium, I have to be on the plan, you're paying over 100% of the premium,
Okay.
right of employment.
So that's the difference.
The way to get, so let's say I don't want to be on your plan. I have a spouse's plan, they're paying 100%, I prefer her plan. Now you're paying for 2 plans that you don't really need to pay for, both employers. So the way is to have the cash in lieu of coverage, which you already have, which creates a contract that I'm opting out of the coverage. So let's say if you're under 20 employees, the government doesn't care what you do.
Right.
You could sit there and give everybody, and they could go to Paul, and you could pay directly to it, and there won't be an issue. What you cannot do is pay more to age 65 than under 65 as like a flat amount.
Okay.
The way to work within that law is to base it on a percentage of the premium, whether it's 55%, 40%, whatever it is, but like I said, there is no magic number. It's just making it high enough to incent the employee, but still low enough that you're saving money as the employer. So as long as you're offering it in a cash in lieu of coverage, it hasn't, that law is not coming into play, because you're offering it to all employees, whether they're 67 or 24.
Okay, so our buyout is currently 20,000 for general fund employees, and then it would go to about 35,000 for current people who are taking buyout if we jump to the 50% plan and they all stay with buyout.
Okay, so you're looking at $15,000 increase there.
But you also have the HRA that's involved in that you don't have to pay that money out.
Not for those people,
For
though.
those
For any
people.
people that you would incent off.
Right.
Because those people aren't in the plan now.
Yeah, but we're not paying that now, that's
Yeah.
the point. We're not
Yeah,
paying
it would
that
be,
now.
it wouldn't be on those people now, but any other people that you,
So
if I'm on your plan now, you incent me, I jumped off, then you get the premium savings and the HRA savings.
if we could get 3 people to remove themselves from the plan at $6,100 apiece just for the deductible, that's $18,000 right there. That covers that difference of buyout.
So that's a big hit, so who on the list, do you know 3 people that are gonna be doing that?
I know 3 people who would be eligible, who are gonna be 65 or older in this coming year.
Well, there might be, and I don't want to, from my perspective, I don't want to keep focusing on the 65. Because we got lost. So I want to talk about, there could potentially be other people too, Mary. I don't want to.
Well, that's what I'm
yeah,
asking.
I want to
I
talk
wasn't
about.
asking about the
Yeah,
65,
and
I'm just asking
Yeah, I
who
don't
on.
want to focus strictly on, because like I said, the
Yeah.
Medicare secondary payroll is.
We can do a table to see how, if
We have
what
12
is scenario
people
for
that take the
everybody.
insurance. Of those 12 people, how many would opt out if we raise the buyout?
We just have to talk about it with those employees and see if it,
Might want to
see if it
survey the
works.
employees.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be a good thing, and then do a table showing
and I think
if
that's what
everybody
you,
did this, here's
yeah.
the end result of all people netting it out. Those who
think-
have it now and those who might get it if we do it,
Mhm.
okay? And then we'll see the value overall.
So we should do that. I'd like to have that information before we vote on that, you know, because if you're talking about doing this for a savings, and that's, you know, that's really the point. You're already increasing your cost 15,000 by upping the buyout for people who are already taking it. And so are you gonna get that back? Are you gonna get enough people to sign up for it to counteract that?
Do we have a deadline on this?
By January,
They
right,
need to
Jack?
enroll by January 1st.
In the new plan, that'd be the best way to do it. There's really not a time frame, but you'd probably want it in place for the new plan year.
Should we be making a presentation then to all employees to see if they would like to do that? Because right now, they're not really aware of this potentially.
Well, it's hard to make a presentation and say, well, maybe the board might do this. And
You
if
could
they
tell them we're
do,
considering, we are considering upping the buyout, would you,
If it's this,
you know, and they
Yes or
don't
no?
have to commit, but I'd like an idea, because
We
why
wanted-
do it if you're not gonna get
We
anybody on it?
wanted Jack to present it to the board first to see what your
Yeah.
feelings were.
Mhm.
well, it makes sense, but we should see the impact of everybody's gonna do it.
Yeah.
So we know what the threshold is gonna be.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the thing is, when you look at the numbers, it's what exactly is what's happening to Mary, is she's looking at one set of numbers. And she's not looking at all the other factors that are involved in it, because you don't have all the data.
Well, that's what I'm
And
saying, I
that's-
don't have the
Exactly.
numbers, I
Right.
wanna see the numbers
So
before
we
we
need to,
make the
we'll put,
decision.
we can put those together, but the point is that we have a policy that right now, is based on old information and an old technique for the buyout, which was, and I think it follows through for any one of the employees, if you're gonna get a buyout and you're age banded, now, compensation is compensation. I mean, if your total package is X number of dollars, but you can only, and your rates are significantly higher, then your buyout is really not, it's not equitable. So,
If you're working for any employer under 50 employees, you're gonna have age banding. If you're over 50, you'll still have the two-person, or the single two-person family, so that's kind of the cutoff.
Really?
So if I'm working for a 500-person group, I'm still gonna have a single two-person family. But if I'm working for a smaller employer, then I'm gonna be looking at my own age. So that 4,000 may or may not be incentive to me.
and
I
then,
didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's under 50, over 50.
correct me on this one, because these are policy changes, they're not, we're not making a change to the insurance policy, this is a healthcare board policy or employee policy. And another component to that is we have retirees, who are, we have in there that we pay up to $450 a month. And one of the things that came out of that was that if we could get the retirees to move to Plan G, there would be significant savings there.
That's what
Plan
Paul
G
is.
offer, which Paul would do, so
Maybe you can
would you
explain
like to
that.
explain that to them?
Yeah, so the plan that is most popular probably with most of your retirees right now, where they have a $450 cap, is Plan F. Plan F 2 years from now is gone. They're doing away with Plan F. The people that currently have it are grandfathered. The problem with being grandfathered and not getting any new healthy premiums, that's gonna jack the prices up. So they're gonna reach that $450 cap way sooner than they should, even if they're healthy and can now go over to the Plan G. It's gonna keep those premiums down, giving them the same coverage. The difference between Plan F and Plan G is who pays that Medicare deductible of $183. It's the same coverage. Plan F, the insurance company pays at $40, but they charge, in this case, you guys, $500 to pay a $183 deductible. It's a convenience charge.
Wow.
If the other folks, the insured, pays it themselves, even if it was reimbursed by the township, there's a big savings just in that without premiums even changing. But we know that they're gonna change because there's gonna be no Plan F and no new healthy premiums going into that bucket. So it's gonna be all pushed onto you guys because there's no incentive for those retirees to move from F to G, because they already know you're gonna pay for it. So while they're healthy and are able to move to that, it makes a financial incentive for them to keep the same coverage, but you guys to not get to that 450 level.
So is that something we need to consider then as a policy to revisit the retirement payouts?
That's my suggestion, is that we look at that. The idea is not to take anything away, but when you got an opportunity to get exactly the same coverage, and it costs them no additional money and saves us probably 50%.
And if there's a health issue where they can't move, then they would stay right where they're at.
The only thing that's needed in order for us to encourage that is to reimburse for that $183 deductible.
But you can run
and
through
our-
it.
That's a premium, not deductible.
You can run that
That's
through.
it.
It's Medicare's deductible.
That's
Yeah.
Medicare
Yeah.
deductible.
And retirees, you can throw in that through a health reimbursement account.
So currently, we just reimburse for the premiums, but if we would also allow to be able to reimburse them for that particular deductible, then we can encourage them to consider a lower cost plan with zero additional cost to themselves.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So we need to formulate this before, I mean, I don't want to decide something tonight without really having it in concrete, that we know exactly what we're doing. And we need a survey, we should survey some of the people. I think that would be a good idea.
Well, yeah, because the other part of, the Medicare thing is, of all of the retirees that are on Medicare and buying a supplement, there are so many choices out there, it's insane. And so you have Medicare Advantage, which you don't pay a deductible. It's a different plan. I think the ones you're talking about are Medigap policies, is that
Yeah.
what they're called? So.
But you're probably, if you're paying the premium for a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage, it's probably 100% of your retirees are on a Medicare supplement. Why would you get a Medigap if you're gonna pay for the supplement? Why would you get why would you get a Medicare Advantage that you have networks, you have co-pays, you have deductibles that they would probably be responsible for?
Well, all I'm saying is, all the employees have that choice, you know,
Yeah.
so not all of them are on F or G or, I mean, I don't even know what all, because we don't deal with that part
Yeah.
here. You know, all of that is, the township just set it up saying, we will reimburse you for a Medicare supplement up to $450 a month. You go find what you want, you pay whatever you pay, we'll reimburse up to $450. And I think we only have one that's at the max, and the rest are quite a bit lower than that. So, I'm not saying there won't be savings, because, you know, depending on what policies they have and if they're on F or G or A or B or
The only way
whatever.
that there would not be a savings is if they're on a zero premium Advantage.
Mhm.
They're probably, because there's no reason for them to be on a zero premium. I mean, you could find out which ones are, but there's no reason for them to be on a zero premium at Advantage and have a bunch of co-pays and deductibles for them if they know you're paying the premiums. They would have never went to a zero premium. They would have went to a Medigap.
Right.
Well, I think in this case, either one of these cases, the object is that for the past 4 years, we've attempted to save the taxpayers' dollars. We've been extremely successful at it. I will say we've hurt nobody. We've had some things that didn't pan out the best for some within the coverage, some get better than others, blah, blah, blah. But overall, everybody's covered. The benefit of having a low deductible. If we can find other ways to cut some costs, then it's the intelligent thing to do. And the retirees, nobody's asking them to give up anything. What
No,
we're
I don't
asking them
think
to do
it's
is
a
to
bad thing
move.
to do. I mean, to
think we
offer
need to-
them, if you
yeah,
move, we'll
come in and
reimburse
talk
the
about it.
183, there's,
Now the-
sorry, but.
Yeah, it's a win-win
Right.
for you guys and
Right.
for them, so.
Now, the thing that would need to happen to make it so people are comfortable with it especially, is you need to have a rep that comes in, and Paul's the individual that could do that. Bring them all together, set them down, talk about the process, show them how it's gonna work, show them that they're not gonna lose any money, get the same coverage, blah, 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 and then ask them to help us to save some money. And,
Unlike what I do, it's more of a group presentation. Paul's is going to be one-on-one, what you have currently.
It can be initially a group, but then I would privately meet with them to go over
And I-
want to
medications.
talk about what they
And
have.
that would be fairly time consuming to meet with other employees, and if we put off this decision until December second Wednesday in December, that doesn't leave a lot of time for getting the employees into their new plan between then and the end of the year. This seems like a really low risk thing for the township to do. I don't know why we wouldn't want to move forward on this part in this meeting today.
Which part are you talking
The
about?
allowing for paying for the $183 annual deductible.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that part of it. The other part of it, I
Right.
want to see the numbers before we do anything. But yeah, like Paul said, this is a win-win. You
Right.
know, so if they don't change, it doesn't cost us any more, and if they do change, it's a potential savings. So
Right.
yeah.
So can we pursue that for today?
Make a motion.
All right, and there's one of two ways. We could either include this $183 in the cap that they already have, or we can offer to increase, we can pay the $450 per month plus the $183 a year deductible. And I could go either way with it. I think, the township wins either way. So I'm gonna propose that we change our buyout plan for retirees to be $450 per month plus we'll say up to $200 deductible per year for employees or retirees.
Support.
What was it? What is it right now?
It's $450 a month total, and now we're gonna go $450 a month plus $200 annually.
Mr.
Because-
Schmidt suggested setting up a, what you call health reimbursement
Health reimbursement
account.
account to do that.
Can we just do that like in-house and?
I'd recommend I think we can do that for you, because we have your group plan. So we do it for other townships, so we can administer it. I don't want to get chewing up a lot of time, but if you do it, if you're getting HIPAA information, Health Insurance Portability Privacy Act, your word is privacy. So you don't want to expose you to privacy because there's pretty stiff fines, but the retirees could set it into Berman Flower. You would set up a bank account, we would pull out of that bank account and reimburse them. So that way you're not exposed to any HIPAA liability.
So we're putting $200 into the.
Yeah, you can either set up a new account, you can let us have access to an existing account, whatever you prefer, but there's a bank statement saying that we're gonna pull out, we'll sign an agreement saying on these individuals, we're gonna reimburse up to $200 for deductibles. And then whenever they have a claim, they would submit it to us and we reimburse them back, and that way you're not getting into potential liability as an employer.
Any issues with that?
That's the question, does that motion need a condition? You're adding the deductible, is it conditioned on the person's moving to Plan G?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they don't move to Plan G, there would be no deductible reimbursement anyway.
Is that the only plan with the deductible?
That's the one with no deductible. So if they're already on that, they wouldn't need the 183.
Okay. All right, so
That's a good point.
if they're already qualified for retiree reimbursement, and if they're moving to Plan G. Okay, you still support it?
Support, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a motion and support. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
So are you going to postpone action on the first item to your next December
Yes.
meeting?
So they're
we
gonna have,
should have a table on that.
some type of a plan.
Physical structure.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, next item, gonna have a public hearing on the budget. That's item 8A, so at 7:24, we open the public hearing.
Just point of information, that was advertised,
Yes.
public hearing, okay, I didn't, usually there's a copy in the board packet, I didn't see it, so I didn't know.
Okay, so any public comment?
Well, I guess would this be a time to resume?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not gonna be thrown out or arrested, right? Kind of felt like that. Anyway, all I really want to say, and you get my point, is that this increase to me is not acceptable, and I'd like the board, and I don't think it's acceptable for a lot of people in the community, and I'd like the board to reconsider that resolution. You know, you control all the levers of power here, you know, and you fund all your own projects that you want. But when it came to us for this increase, this fee increase, you said no. And I'd like you to reconsider.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other comments? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:25. Item B is approval of the 2018 Township budget. I would like everybody to know that if you look at the copy that is handed out to you on page 7, there's one change from what was in the previous budget. And if you look down at item on page 7, under bus salary assistant driver PT, that space is blank. It previously said $5,000 and some odd dollars. And then the next line down, what was in your package, had a number of 13,000 some odd dollars. What had happened there is the bus director had thought that she had to separate out the driving time versus the clerical time. And it turns out that that's not how we were bookkeeping it, so we had to add those two numbers together, which totals out to 19,227, and it makes no change in the budget. It's just a clerical change. So that's been corrected in the sheet that's been handed out. And from there, that's we've pretty much gone through everything in the budget. If anybody has any questions on the board, entertain them.
One question on, when we talked last week, or last budget meeting about the money we're pulling from capital improvement, there was something that just was bothering me that the way we were doing it. And I didn't think about this till this afternoon, but I'd like to know what the auditors think about doing it this way. You know, to me, it's when you take money for a project like the park stuff out of capital improvement, but you don't show it in the general fund, then it gets kind of hidden and kind of lost. So, you know, you want to take the money out of capital improvement for it, fine, but it still should be in general fund and show that transfer in, you know, from capital improvement. So you show where the money's coming from. Then the expenditure is through general fund like it normally is. And I think that was what was bugging me last time, the way we were doing that money. I don't know if it's too late to change that now for this, but I would like to see it done that way. If you want to take the money from capital improvement, then it should be a transfer in to general fund of that amount.
So
You know
that's
what
like
I'm saying?
200,000?
220,000.
The 220,000?
Whatever that total is, you know, you have money in there for, park, is page 10.
That the money in and out is in the budget. It's shown in the budget.
No, it
Yes.
doesn't. No,
Well, it does.
because what you did, Rick, was put, for Hickory Ridge Park improvements, and the Duck Lake improvements, you have it under capital improvement. So if you look at our budget for general fund, which is usually where all that park stuff is paid for, it doesn't show that expense there. You know what I'm saying? So all you have to do is put it in the general fund, show the transfer from capital improvement into general fund, that money that you want to take.
As an expense.
Right, well, as a transfer in of revenues.
That transfers in there.
Because we added line items, so it would show in capital improvement that it was like for Hickory Ridge Park and Duck Lake.
But what I'm saying is you're showing the expense in the capital improvement fund, and the expense should be in the general fund.
Well, we can ask the auditors about that for sure. And if they advise us that it would be better to do it the other way, We can do a budget
Yeah,
amendment
we can.
and move it around. I mean, it doesn't change the bottom line
It
at all.
doesn't, no, it doesn't. It doesn't change the bottom line, but that's what was kind of.
Cause
bugging
I
me last
totally
time.
understood when we had this capital improvement conversation before, that it would be easier to track if everything was in capital improvement. So then we could go to capital improvement and say, hey, what's happened in the last 5 years? Pull the general ledger detail and it would all be there. It would all be in one place, and that's how I understood that,
Okay,
Mary.
so that's how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And that's Amy,
No, let's-
Amy's the one that has been, you know, the bookkeeper has been the one that's been communicating with the auditors. She's the one that actually, in this process, when we discussed it, said, you know, we don't have a way to really track this, these individual items
So
in
it's
the
like
capital
one fund and
improvement.
everything's all the capital improvements, so it would just, everything's in one place.
And showing what expenditures are coming out of the capital.
Yeah, but what
Right,
about when we
yes.
do capital, improvements and we pay for it out of the general fund? You know, then it's in general fund, so now now you
But
have it in
that's
two
why
places.
When we were putting the budget together this year, it was like, so let's do that capital improvement thing, because it made sense. But
So
we
going
can
for-
definitely
going
talk to the
forward-
auditors
Yeah.
and see what, I mean, I don't have a problem with that at
Yeah.
all.
So going
I'd
forward.
just like to know what they think about it, which way is.
The trail's
there's
still
an
there.
appropriate or a better
Right.
way, or. Okay.
You know, the trail is still there, and I think what it does do is it actually identifies more directly, that you are exercising, you're using a fund that has been sitting, puffing up, so to speak. And,
But if any person looked at our budget and said, what are you paying, what expenses are you paying for the parks this year, it doesn't show that, It doesn't
Right.
show that 30,000 or 25 or whatever is, you've got in capital improvement, it doesn't show it in the expense for the park. So then that park, the park fund, or part of the budget, doesn't show really what you're spending on the
So
park.
say
You've got
you're
some of it
allocating
coming
money,
out
but
of
you
the-
don't show that you bought it on street signs.
well,
or-
if you look at what's happening in the parks, those numbers are small. Those are day-to-day maintenance, they're not capital improvements. And that's the difference, you're taking a number that says, okay, on a day-to-day basis, what could go wrong, or what could be something that we need to attend to in those parks.
I thought the reason you put it in capital improvement so that fund would pay for it. No, I'm saying it.
That
that's the
fund pays
point.
for the fixes, the repairs, the major stuff. These aren't for major repairs or major improvements. Capital improvements are major repairs or improvements, they're not.
No, that's not how we've
minuscule
always done
things.
it. But like I said, I'd like the auditor's take on it so we know which way it should be.
See it.
Well, we're gonna
It's no problem to get their input.
get their input on it, and it's,
I mean, like you're buying computers, that's a capital improvement or purchase, When we redid the Township Hall, that came out of general, it was transferred from capital fund, but it was paid out of general fund.
well, I think the terminology is where the problem's at. I don't think that a computer is a capital improvement, it's a tool.
Council expense. Asset maybe, but.
You've gotta look at,
Under general fund township maintenance, what's that 50,000 for?
for the odds and ends that occur that happen here.
It's more like an operational thing than a big project thing.
Okay, well, if you would just check with the auditors.
We'll do
We
that.
can change that if we need to.
Ken?
I'd appreciate it.
All right, any other questions?
I would make a motion to approve the 2018 township budget.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
I vote yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Can I just say that I'm glad that this is over, and for the audience, this has been a lot of work and discussion has gone into this in the last few meetings and everything, so this is great to finally get it approved.
Amen.
And I'd like to say that this is one of the easiest ones that we've done. I mean,
It
in
really
terms
was
of
a lot of
smoothness
input from everyone, and, yeah.
and, agreement.
Yep.
I think that the key is that, we kept the budget, under, by $80,000. I think that says a lot in terms of not taking everything that you got coming in and trying to send it out the door. Although we have found that every time you turn around, something happens and you end up having to make some budget amendments here and there, but I think that we should be in good shape, so thank you guys. Right, next item,
I'll just ask, on the point that Ms. Hansford brought up about the refuse, is it too late to change that, Ginny? I mean,
I don't know the
have you
answer
sent
to
the
that
county?
question. Well, actually, yeah, the role's pretty well set.
Okay.
I mean, we approved it at board level and we
I was
have it
gonna
in the
bring that up, I
system.
thought we had to wait till public comment to bring that up, and because of the fact that when we looked at it, we didn't think that, we had discussion about it and everything, but she's brought up some valid points, and if it's a hardship on people, you know, I feel very bad about that too. I wish we could, open that up and discuss it.
well, there's an
open,
answer
but-
to that. And the answer is, if you have a problem paying for it, you come in and we take it out, we reduce your taxes. I
The
mean,
tax portion, we can't reduce the
but if
trash if it's set.
if you reduce their taxes, then
Yeah.
you're making a net effect on what their expenditures are. A lot of people don't do it. I mean, there's a lot of individuals that would fall into this scenario that won't come in, and won't, because of either pride or whatever it is. And we can't go knock on every door and say, hey, you know, you don't make enough money. That's not,
Do we have that, is that, I mean,
I don't
that's
have that
public
info.
knowledge that people know that and it's posted somewhere on the website, or I mean, do people know that?
We tell people that all the
Do
time.
you, okay.
Is this person the property owner that you're talking about?
Well, yesterday not, but
No.
people across the street from me are in the same situation, you know, there's
With the
plenty of
property
people.
owner?
Yeah, they own a home and they live on very minimal amount of money each year.
well, not to infer any derogatory component to it, but it's $3.17 a week. Nobody can get rid of trash for that.
For me, it's a principle, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, that, you know, when you're putting away $1 million at the end of the year of taxpayer money, you know, everybody ran as a Republican, I'd like to see some conservative thinking up here about the taxpayer. And I feel pretty strongly about that. You know, there's no
Yeah.
reason for us in the good times to pass on an increase to the residents in Highland when the money's available to take care of it. And that's a bill that was known to increase. It was, you know, it was no surprise, you know, the 5-year contract has increases built into it.
Actually, the
And,
5-year contract is the same, and we had been charging less than the contract.
I thought it increased as the years went on.
Not this
Okay, so
contract,
I'm mistaken
no.
there, but regardless, it's, the township has the funds to pay for it. We pay for many other expenses that go across his desk on a weekly or on a monthly basis, you know, and, you know, Mr. Sylvia says, I've heard him say, you know, and the money's in the account, I'm a businessman, if the money's in the account, pay the bill. So I just feel like, you know, let's pay the bill for the taxpayer. It's not a lot of money.
The thing is with expenses, there's two ways to pay for expenses. You can pay for them with fees or you can pay for them with taxes. And generally conservative thinking is that you don't want to pay for as many things with taxes as possible. You want fees to cover services as much as possible to keep the taxes low. And the fee being charged is not excessive for what the cost is. It's just enough to cover the cost and keep things running.
I understand, I just think it's a principle, look at where we are today versus where were in 2012, and, you know, the township's in a better position financially, and they could easily take on that small amount for the community.
The other way I looked at it when I was figuring it out was probably 25 years ago, our garbage pickup cost was $168. It was more than with the increase this time around. So I think it's a heck of a bargain.
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, I appreciate your input. I mean, if it's the board's pleasure that we look into it and see how much it costs and talk about it, we can go that direction, but I have to have tax bills out December 1st.
Okay. Thanks, though.
I mean, I just don't have the numbers here.
Okay,
We have the 80,000 extra in the general fund, so, you know, it's a possibility that we could do that. But then next year, you're looking at the
Well,
same thing.
but, you know, if we do that, what, and we need a rainy
I mean,
day
how-
fund for
how
next
do you
year,
take
what
it
are we
away
doing?
next
You
time?
know,
Yeah.
if we try to resolve every issue that someone has a concern about some portion that they can't pay, there's so many things you can handle and so many things you can't handle. That's, you know, that's my concern about that. I understand she has a concern and a need. If we just take everything and give it away, it's like donating to charity. I can give everything away I have, and there's still gonna be people out there with a need, and I don't know where else to go with helping people with needs. Okay? I mean, if we resolve that, if we gave the $80,000 back to the folks that have to pay the extra $15, is that even gonna be enough? How much do we spend? How much is the $15 worth? How many garbage pickups we have times 15?
Like 6,500.
6,500.
I mean, I'm just shooting
Yeah,
out a
that's
number, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, so it's just, you know, where do we stop or where we continue? And then somebody else will say, well, you did that for that, we want something else to go away. So it's a toss. I understand what you're saying, okay?
Can you
Okay,
encourage your
I
neighbor
just wanted to
to
make a
talk,
point.
come up and talk to the township?
You know, people that sometimes at those ages are not really capable of those type of conversations, you know? I mean, how many people show up for these meetings?
Well, that would just be a one-on-one thing
Yeah,
if they,
I don't
maybe
think that would
a
be,
possibility.
All right,
Okay. Thank you.
we're gonna move on to item C, resolution number 17-19, 2018 General Appropriations Act.
This came out of the workshop I attended with the MGFOA group. And it's their belief that in order to satisfy state requirements, it's a good idea to do this Appropriations Act, which is sort of a formal way of looking at the budget and our spending policies, and just sort of be open and transparent with people about, you know, what we're paying to people and what's going on with our money. And so I assembled this resolution for your consideration.
Okay, somebody wanna make a motion to,
I would move to approve resolution number 17-19, the 2018 General Appropriations Act.
Support.
moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
I'm gonna put that up there just so the public can see. This is the act. It lists our millage for the different elements, the library, the debt fund, the police fund, fire fund. And then there's a third page that shows the salaries and the prospective hourly rates of all the individuals within the building and the operation. And that's public record, so anybody wants to get a copy of that, they can come in and we'll make sure you have that available. All right, next item. Resolution number 17-20 to approve bank depositories for 2018. Judy, you want to discuss this, please?
Yep, this is just basically housekeeping. Annually, we bring forward the institutions that we invest money in. And this is our list for this year. It's pretty much one new bank on there. A couple of the banks have changed names.
Okay. I move to approve resolution 17-20, the bank depositories for 2018.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're already, that was 20. Okay, resolution 17-22 to opt out of the provisions of PA 152- of 2011. And this relates to, Tammy, why don't you take this one, you know what you're.
Well, it's just the same thing that we pass each year that just has to do with, you know, passing on the state's requirements for our, how we do our health insurance, percentages of employees that have to pay and all that.
So this is an opt-out.
Right.
All right, motion,
I would move to approve resolution number 17-22 to opt out of the provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011.
Support.
okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carried.
Okay, next item is, public hearing for community development block grant funds. So at 7:45, the public hearing is open. Any public comment, questions? Right, Jenny, I'm gonna put you on the spot here just so that the public understands what we're talking about here.
Okay,
Do you wanna describe this? Because you're the official.
so every year we apply for community development black fund grants, and this year they're offering us approximately 43,000. And out of that, you can spend 30% on public services, if you want to, up to 30%, and then the rest on specific things for low income.
ADA projects,
ADA,
senior center.
And this year, we're slating 12,956 to senior transportation, and then 30,000 towards construction at the senior annex, 205 West Livingston, replacing the roof. I had on here flooring and windows, but it won't be enough.
So what happened is I went over to the annex and met with the representative from CDBG from Oakland County to look at the building and to verify that building over there was originally purchased with CDBG money. Anything that happens at this point with those monies, it has to be related to senior activities. So 51% of that building has to be used for senior activities, and there's a dividing line in the building, which just happens to be the portion that was built in about 1982. So the building originally consisted of the main church building. Then there was a school that was attached to it, which is the second highest roof on it. And then there's a low pitch roof that's the majority of the back of the building that was originally put on for the library. And that's where the library is located. So in going through the building, we've discovered a number of issues. None of the door handles are ADA approved. Some of the access in the way the doors swing don't meet ADA. The bathrooms don't meet ADA. There's a lot of stuff to it on the interior, so what was recommended is we hold off on that project until the next level. And then we went outside to look at the roof because there's a couple of leaks in it that don't make sense where they're at, number one. And in looking at the roof, this thing is like I think if you stepped on it, it might go through the roof boards.
It did look like that.
So that's what the $30,000 will be allocated to removing that roof completely and putting a new roof on it, but only on the 51% portion. If you look at the rest of the building, the rest of the roof looks great. So it's something wrong, so we'll have to correct it. It's probably most likely ventilation is incorrect, and that'll have to be improved.
Tony, how's that compare to what we did last year, this money?
So they offered us the same amount of money last year, and we did the same amount to transportation, and then we did the senior project where we're doing senior center over here. So both doors, the north and south entry doors, are going to be replaced here this month, we hope.
Okay, so it's about the same thing?
Yes.
Same kind, okay.
But they did, last year, they did call us up and say, we're giving all of the money out, and gave us an extra 20,000.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
They don't usually do that.
No.
So I think the senior center is, instead of 30, it might be 49
This year.
this year. So whatever's left, right now we have 8,000 left from one account, and then whatever's left from that project, and then whatever would be left from, well, we're gonna remodel the senior offices as soon as we get the money this year. So if there's any money left, we can roll over, reappropriate or reprogram.
Okay.
Jenny, in the past, I know, and it's a while back, we also did things that weren't right here in the Highland community, like there was a women's center one time, and then Meals on Wheels, and have the requirements changed now? I mean, I think it's great we're using it right
Nope,
here.
we can still do those things.
but-
There's a booklet.
Okay,
And Meals on Wheels is one of them. We had, at the end, it was hard to get the information we needed from Meals on Wheels to submit, because we have to pay it, and then we get reimbursed.
oh,
And then for, yes, there's a Haven. You can, that one, the county just, you give them the money and they just give it to Haven. And then there's minor mobile home and home repair. You can do, I guess,
But that comes out of the 30%.
public services comes, so it's only the approximately 13,000.
So that means that, one of the things that we're doing is that goes to the bus program right now.
all right.
And so if you start reducing that, then we short sheet the bus.
Okay. I just
Bus
wondered
program.
how you determine those
Right.
things.
Well, we get a
Okay.
book every year, and then we just go through it and determine what is needed.
Thank you.
And I want to publicly thank Jenny because this is a major time abuser. It's just one of the million things that she does on a daily basis. And she has a real high standing with Oakland County. They appreciate the way that she handles all the projects she's done. And as a consequence, they're always right there for us. So I think that's a kudos. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:51.
Did we talk about that resolution then?
Not yet.
That's next. Okay, public hearing is closed. All right, resolution 17-21, approving the 2018 Community Development Block Grant application. So a motion to approve?
I would move.
Question?
Yes.
The date is past this 98th day of November, so
The what?
the date says the 98th day, at least on mine. You have it, I'm looking at the,
You don't have 98 days in your November calendar?
I read it.
Right.
We'll fix it.
All right, just a fix.
So it's the 9th day of November?
8/7.
8?
Oh, last page it says 98th day.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost the 9th day.
A new calendar, we got a little
Last
better
page of
than
the
that.
resolution.
Only in Highland Township. All right, so we got a motion and a second.
Did you support Mary Pat?
Wait, I didn't get the motion.
Would move to approve resolution 17-21, approving the 2018 Community Development Block Grant application.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. The vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
Jenny.
thank you.
Jenny. Okay, the next item is program year 2017 sub-recipient agreement. This is the agreement that the supervisor has to sign to
Release the
Release
2017
the
funds.
2017 funds.
We usually get them in August. There was kind of a running bet at Oak County when we were gonna get them. We're gonna get them December 1st if we get this in by November 22nd. They didn't know if we were gonna get them.
So,
I would move to authorize the supervisor to sign the program year 2017 subrecipient agreement between Oakland County and the Charter Township of Highland.
Support.
okay, moved and supported.
Mrs. Cooper?
Season change. Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. Next item, introduce zoning ordinance amendment Z011. The applicant was Gary and Joan Sarah Darian, parcels 11, 27, 351, 011, and 012. It's on South Milford Road at the corner of Lone Tree Road. Requesting rezoning to OS, Office Services, to C1 Local, Commercial Rezoning. What we're gonna do tonight is this is just gonna be an introduction. And then we'll have the final component of it at our December meeting. And this, just as a preface, this instance is part of what brought up the request to have a joint session with the Planning Commission. Mary Pat, you were there, of course you voted on this, and so what we want to do is, as opposed to taking one parcel and maybe having a rethink on it, or the potential to rethink it, is to actually have the conversation, hopefully have a conversation that maybe covers a broader area. So we'll introduce it now, which I think is a requirement anyways, and then at the December meeting, we can make a decision on it. So I don't think there's anything else we need to do on that, is there?
Just one thing in Beth's memo, and I brought it to her attention. She said you would introduce today and you couldn't do anything till December.
Right.
And I pointed out I didn't agree with that. If this was just dead on arrival, if you wanted to follow the Planning Commission's recommendation, you could tonight make a motion to not introduce the ordinance amendment and deny the rezoning. You could do that. You can also introduce the ordinance amendment that doesn't commit you to approving it when it comes up again. That's what you're suggesting.
Right.
But I had to point out that there was the other option, but introducing it and then taking up the merits of it at a later meeting is fine.
Right, there's been some discussion from two different directions, and I think the thing is that we need to have some more discussion on it, and I think the best way is we'll address it at the next board meeting, let the introduction lie, and we can make a decision on the next, in December.
Sounds like though you don't want to wait until after we have the joint meeting and talk about this, or no?
We can push it down the street.
I mean, because would we know that much more at the December one, or do you need to hear the Planning Commission?
I think, Gary, my problem is I don't know that I should be talking about that. I don't know what to say about this.
And, well,
We don't have.
you
to
said
go
it,
in
the
December.
joint meeting you said is in January.
It's in
correct?
January. And it could have a net effect on this anyway, so.
Right, well, I mean, the Planning Commission has done their job on
Right.
this requested rezoning. You have the flexibility in terms of what you do with it. You can introduce it tonight with a motion, and that motion could indicate when you will consider it for adoption. It could be, as your planning director has recommended, in December. It could be at a later date. I don't know if the applicants are here
No.
to address this, because, I mean, they may have a desire to get an earlier decision than as opposed to a more lengthy postponement.
Well, they've owned it for 40 years, and they're trying to sell it. They would like to have it changed from office to
Right.
general commercial, but C1, but there's some other things that in looking at all of the parcels within that district can change, could be a different picture, so.
Let me just stop you there. You can, a motion to introduce, schedule for adoption at whatever the December meeting is.
December 13th.
Okay, you can do that, and when that date comes, if you, for whatever reason, wanted to postpone action, you could do it at that time. That
So
may be the best
we
way
could
to go.
postpone it to
That way
February.
that way you're following your planning director's recommendation. You're not creating a record that what you're doing here has anything to do with that joint meeting.
So I guess what I would, on that basis, and tell me if I'm incorrect here, I'm gonna propose a motion that we introduce the zoning amendment Z011 for these two stated parcels, with a decision date at the board meeting in February of 2018, which would then allow us to have that conversation with the planning commission. Does that sound?
There's nothing that I see wrong with that motion if it's made.
I mean, does it require a motion?
Yes. I think the board should move to introduce the ordinance.
I'll support
Because if
that
you don't
motion.
introduce it, it never gets considered
We
for
made it.
adoption.
Huh? I did.
So, oh, you made
Rick
it?
just
Yeah.
made it, yep.
Okay, Rick made a motion and Judy supported it to introduce the ordinance and take up the decision when?
At the
At the
February.
February board meeting.
February board meeting. Okay,
You supported?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, vote please.
I vote yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
comment on Beth's letter, she had introduction on November 2nd. Beth's letter.
Have what?
Relevant.
She wrote November 2nd when it's November 8th. Apparently, we all got our dates wrong this month.
Well, they changed the time and it screws everybody up.
Right. Daylight savings, right?
Yep. Okay, next item, J is purchase of a plotter. The township has been without a plotter for 4 years. One of the things that comes out of this one is this particular plotter is also a scanner. And the purpose of it is the planning commission has requested iPads, and in order to get plans into iPads, you have to scan them. So they become digital copies. The other part is that we take images to, or scan blueprints to Milford, to the,
UPS.
what is it?
UPS.
UPS, to have them scan and print large documents. The other thing is all of our maps are becoming shot and out of date, and if you see the stuff we're working with, and we have no way to reprint those without taking them to a printer and paying $25 to $30 or more per page. Over time that adds up. The other part is that the planning commission, instead of receiving 15 individual master plans for some of these projects that are this big, we can reduce it to one plan for the township and paper copy, the rest to be digital, and that could save the consumer who's doing the project a significant amount of money as well. So we went through the same process that we did on the printer for the senior center. This is a mitten number. And so I'd like to, I guess I'll make the motion to let somebody else do it. I'm the one presenting it.
I would move to approve the purchase of the plotter scanner for the township. I'm sorry, do we have the cost in here?
Yes.
At a cost of $7,212 for it's from Applied Imaging.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, next item. If you recall, at one of our previous meetings, I guess it was back in beginning of October, the fire chief and I came forward with a proposal to hire a combination fire marshal ordinance officer. The board sent us back to review or interview or divide it up into 3 components: fire marshal, ordinance officer, 2 separate individuals part-time, or fire marshal, ordinance officer combined. We ended up, I don't know the total number that we ended up with.
You
We interviewed 11 people.
Yes.
There was more than that after.
Yeah, there was more applications than that.
Actually,
And what it came out of was that there was only one individual that wanted to do part-time fire marshal. We had multiple individuals that would have worked fine for a part-time ordinance officer, But the problem that we have is we have an issue with, we have to go send all our plans out. There's nobody that does plan reviews. We don't have a fire marshal. We need a fire marshal. And I think if you read this memorandum that was done by Judy Cooper, I think that what we found was it made a lot of sense to go with the single individual that would work full-time and work for both the fire department and the township doing ordinances. And what we ended up with was we did 11 interviews. We ended up with 3 individuals that were extremely qualified. I mean, it was so incredibly hard to believe that you'd get 3 people with qualifications like that. So we had 3 different components to this. We had the initial interviews, of which Tammy, Judy, myself, and the chief were in on. Tammy didn't meet all 3, and Judy didn't meet all 3, but they got to see a mix. And then the chief and I were in on all 3 of the initial interviews. Then we asked them to come back and do a program that the chief had picked up from Heartland that was extremely interesting. I mean, what it was is there was 3 components to the process. They'd have to do a presentation, which was about
fire safety and emergency preparedness to seniors.
And then they had to do a role-playing thing where we had an individual come in and give who was cited with an ordinance violation, so that would put it through the township side. And then the third one had to do with the
fire inspection
process. Each group, or each, like the ordinance one had the building official, had a firefighter, and had, I guess Missy from the DDA was in on that
community
one.
representative.
And then I sat in on that one as well because that kind of fit my side of it, but I did not have anything to do with any of the decision-making on that. And then there was, Judy was on another
Sarah.
group. Sarah?
Sarah out here.
She's not here.
Yeah,
Oh, there she is. Sarah was on it, and we had
Mike Maher.
Mike Maher from Highland Feed, and then Tammy, you had,
RJ and Heidi.
so we had somebody from our activity center and RJ from the fire department. And I think that, I don't know how everybody felt, but Jeff Peskowski was on the ordinance one, and I was hesitant to do this thing. I told the chief that I thought, I don't know how this is gonna work, but it was really excellent the way the thing turned out. We had Grant Charlick, who is building a project behind 59 West, and what he did was, he was the bad guy, that got in trouble for having the limousines in his yard. He was running a business out of his yard. That was the role play. And it was interesting to see how each one of these individuals handled that in terms of, what was their intensity, how did they handle it in terms of, were they kind, were they, compassionate, what kind of offer, did they do to help with the process. And then the other 2 were the presentation, so I don't know how, I wasn't in on the presentation, but.
That's good.
So it was a stellar process. And then the final component of it is that we had to then take and look at all the qualifications and go down the list of who has what. And so the final decision-making was, or for the recommendation was the 3 in-house officials, and we looked at that and we came up with a final conclusion. And it didn't necessarily match up with the role-playing part, but what came out of it was the information that we needed to really select the person I think that is probably going to will do the job for us best. One individual did not have planning certification, and that happened to be the one that had the most points in the role-playing part. So you look at that and go, wow, now what do you do? Well, the truth is, what are you looking for? You got to look for these qualifications. So The final recommendation is that we came down to Sean Knight. And like I said, they all did a phenomenal job, and it was very hard to make that, that selection. But I think that Sean will be a good individual he's got a lot of experience. He had a really good way with himself. I mean, he presented himself extremely well for the portion I was in. I don't know if he was nervous and he got here at 7:30 in the morning because of that, or he just wanted to make sure he wasn't late, because he's living over north of 59 on the east side. So, but he came back and said he was willing to take on this job. So I'd like to make that motion that.
Question?
Yes.
My only concern about this, about putting the two positions together, and I might be wrong on this, I thought that each one by itself as a part-time job was at 25 hours. Is that correct? The ordinance officer was 25 hours a week, and then the...
Up to 29.
Because
25.
how can you combine 20, that's 50 hours a week down to a 40-hour position? I just worry because, and I've heard it said before, that people wondered about the ordinance part of it too, the ordinance enforcement, if the person would have enough time to do that. So that's my only concern. Yes.
And we talked about this quite in depth, and I know that was a concern of the board. But when you look at our ordinances, a lot of the ordinances kind of are the same as the fire code. Address assignments and identifications, clearances for roads, debris around properties. A lot of them are kind of redundant, which is why we thought that it made sense to use one person for both jobs, because they can kind of hammer out both things at one time.
Yeah, one of the applicants was mentioning that, he worked previously for another jurisdiction, and when he would get to a property and he would notice that there were ordinance, he'd have to call over the ordinance guy to come over, and they would both do the same job together, standing there together, so you're paying two people to do the same thing. And so we can do this a lot more efficiently.
Okay.
It also might be that the potential allocation of hours, if it was both fulfilled, might be that much, but I think the overlap is probably not an issue if there's overlap anyway, so.
It'll be busy for the first couple months, but I think once we get into a groove and find proper use for the personnel, I think it'll be just a stellar use of township funds.
So maybe looking at a question, is the rate per hour based on 40 hours or max at 40 hours, or is there?
37 and a half.
Okay, all right. So if he needs to work any overtime, is that gonna be a consideration for him then, or is it just?
I don't see a reason to make him work overtime.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's gonna have more effort initially, is what was said, so.
Well, these.
Question like, who does he report to? It's kind of.
Actually, he
hard to
sits
bosses and-
in the township here, and the primary report is to the township, and the duties are split that way, but the pay is 50-50. In other words, we take half of the pay from the fire department and half from township. And there's some other things, you might want to mention any other interplay that might be valuable there.
Well, I was just gonna mention about one-stop shop with him being over here as a fire marshal and the code official. As people are coming in and they have any issues with any plans or questions about plans, or like the DePonios, when they were researching, doing the complex, they were asking me all kinds of questions that I don't have the expertise to handle. This gentleman is gonna be inside Township Hall. He can answer those questions now and get the information out to him in a timely manner.
It's a better setting.
Absolutely.
more
So this person is not gonna go on fire runs and be a firefighter?
Initially, we talked about using him during the daytime for structure fires, but because he lives so far away and the likelihood of getting him in on training, unless he moves back into Oakland County into a closer proximity, the intention is just to use him as an administrative person.
Sounds like they'll have enough work to do as an administrative person, let alone to add in, unless you had a dire emergency.
Well, if there was some severe emergency and his body's needed, there's no reason we wouldn't allocate that.
The only issue we're gonna run into is familiarity with equipment, familiarity with operations, familiarity with policies, SOG, stuff like that. So.
But the object is, we don't have a fire marshal. There's a tremendous amount that a fire marshal can do to increase the safety in the community, to make businesses more adapted to what it takes to make it safe for a fireman to come in and save their buildings. And to also maybe preempt some of these potentials for fires by seeing the things that could cause issues down the road. And it's important because we've got 300 and some odd businesses. Not all of them would have somebody else. I think they're listed as ones that you would visit. So is there stuff up to date? You know, I mean, you got a bunch of firefighters in here, and the last thing you guys want to do is be walking blind into a building. If we can help make changes in that and have the awareness, greater education for the public, that's another thing we talked about. That was part of the reason for that.
And we've been very fortunate with our large commercial fires lately. 60% of all commercial businesses that have catastrophes in their business never reopen. As far as I know, we've only had one that hadn't reopened as far as a large commercial property.
I'd make the motion that we proceed to hire Mr. Sean Knight for the full-time position of fire marshal and ordnance officer, as specified.
Support?
At $20 per hour.
$20 per hour.
Starting November 15th.
That will have to be tentative. The lieutenant and I were just talking about the background check and stuff like that, so as soon as we get the information.
Subject to what?
Subject to.
Background check, physical.
Subject to the appropriate background checks.
Right, typical stuff we do for firefighters when they get hired.
Okay.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
I'm voting no because I don't believe this is a good idea to have one person for two different jobs. You know, nothing against this gentleman or your process, but that's my feeling.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I got ahead of myself.
That's fine. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And Chief, kudos on putting that program together. I mean, that was a lot of
Great
work
job.
to extrapolate, rip off, and what do we call it there, Missy?
R&D.
Yeah, R&P, rip off and
We
duplicate.
can't give all the
R&D.
credit to Highland, we gotta give it to Brighton, who originally came up with the process.
Priceless.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
All right, the next item is budget amendments.
No.
No.
What did I miss?
Recertification. We need to
No.
recertify the electronic tax
Shoot.
roll.
Okay, Judy, your turn.
I forgot I even wrote this. This must have been a while ago. We need to recertify our electronic tax roll every year. In the olden days, the legislation required us to keep these huge hard copies of the tax roll, and we don't have to do that anymore. So every 3 years, Oakland County maintains that for us, and we have to sign an agreement with them to do that. So that's what this is for.
Cool. I would move to approve the recertification of the electronic tax roll.
Support?
Okay, pick one. Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. Now we're at the budget amendments.
So this is some cleanup for end of the year. It's always tough to predict how much you're gonna bring in for building permits and turn around and spend and inspector fees. So again, we've overshot our expected income, and we need to cover the correlating expected expenses. And then for the fire fund, this is a fire appropriation balance to fire expenses transfer. And then for refuse, this helps to cover the additional costs that we incurred with the hazmat project, or the hazardous waste project, sorry.
I'll move to approve the budget amendments as listed.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, I don't know about anybody else, but I gotta take a couple minute break here, so, take a little break in the action. The next item will be, the fire department and appeal of a discipline letter, so, it's, 8:19, so we'll take, 5 minutes max.
Thank you.
Okay, gonna resume the meeting at 8:24, and before we get into the next part, I do want to make a clarification on something that happened a little earlier. I want to apologize to Lynn Hansford. What should have happened in that little scenario with the gavel clacking and so on and so forth was that Lynn misunderstood, that thought she had 5 minutes. We had a 3-minute timer on there. I should have realized that we had a public hearing component which would have allowed her to speak her piece, and I should have at that point said, Lynn, you have that opportunity, but it didn't go that way, so I just want to back up and say I apologize. I wish I would have kind of put those pieces together, and so going forward, I think we need to discuss the time limit on public speaking. We kind of agreed on a 3-minute thing. I think what we'll do is we'll have a little more discussion about it at a later, before the next meeting, and we'll talk about that. But sorry for that faux pas, and
I was just really surprised by the reaction over 3 minutes.
so anyways, it wasn't intended to go too far. So, all right. Next item. I'm not sure how to, I've never had to do this type of thing, Gary. Is there any?
Well, I did have an opportunity to look at what the chief did in writing, and I saw the email request to meet with Cammie about the process, and I provided some input on that. And that was the last thing I did. It's an appeal, so it's a limited hearing. I would suggest the first order of business would be to get in the record what the action being appealed is. And the communication I saw, and I apologize, I don't remember the officer's name, but I didn't see in the email the grounds for his appeal having been stated. All I saw was he wanted to have a meeting. And I don't know if since then he has identified the grounds for his appeal. But after the chief's outlined what he did and why, then it would be appropriate to have the appellant. I was in the Court of Appeals today. And I was not the appellant. But at any rate, to identify the grounds for his appeal, and then an opportunity for him to elaborate on those. I understand that the action was a reprimand that will be in the file for 1 year. But that's the extent, and I can provide assistance as you go along here. Okay. But the issue is, and what the chief did, and under the ordinances and rules that the fire department operates under, was it appropriate action or not? Under your ordinance, you've vested the responsibility for running the fire department with the chief. So the general rule in an appeal is you look at it to see if the action he took was authorized by law and whether it was justified under the facts, that are presented.
How do we start with entering this into the record? The discipline that was taken. Should we just read this letter? Or?
Does all board members have it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be read into the record.
Okay. Should we have him come to the podium and state his case?
So that said, the chief doesn't need to make a presentation.
I was just getting the podium out.
Well, I think in this case, the individual Chandler is asking us to weigh in on this. And I think that maybe what we should do is give Mr. Conley an opportunity to make a statement.
Yeah, that's the next order of business.
So, Mr. Conley, would you like to come up to the podium and?
Sure. I've actually got a rebuttal letter, if you'd like to read that before I get into it, I guess, then I can defend against that as well, or explain it more. I also attached the write-up on the back of it as well, so, but you guys already have that, so.
Do you have a copy for Mr. Dover?
I need extras.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody read that? Okay. Mr. Hamlin?
Questions, or you want me to back up the, never had to do this before either, so I'm not quite sure how to proceed.
None of us have had to do this.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
what do you want the board to do?
The reprimand should be removed, right?
That's the extent of your request?
Yeah, I think I was unfairly disciplined. Really, there's no clear indication as to what I'm being reprimanded for. As far as I can tell, this will bring up a safety issue. It doesn't reference any rules or policies or anything that were violated. I felt intimidated and threatened by it.
Well, it looks like you've detailed your reasoning very thoroughly. So I can't imagine you have a lot to add to it. I think it's pretty clear what you're trying to say.
I probably have a question for the chief. Chief, in looking at his response, and knowing chain of command from the military, he did notify the battalion commanders that, the battalion commanders are responsible to notify their individual staff underneath them. Would that be correct?
This was sent in email form to all officers of the department.
So would that chain of command cause that communication to go down through the chain if
I'm sorry, did you just say this was sent to the whole department?
All officers of the department.
I'm just trying to understand that, if I go back to the video, but I think you said you sent something to the battalion folks who would send that to their.
I mentioned what we had found and what I was doing about it to each of them.
Would that have been passed down to the individual firefighters then? Should it have been?
I was investigating to see what was going on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to correlate what the chief said, and I'm trying to give you some comfort in the fact that you did tell your next echelon that should be carried down to the other folks in answer to his need, that the entire staff, okay? You sent to the officers, should the entire staff have been notified of that too?
Eventually it should have been,
Okay. Did they?
Yes, an email was sent out the following morning, after I received two O2 bottles from Milford that are old O2 bottles were out of hydrostatic test.
What I'm saying in his defense is, I'd have to go back and find it again. You indicated that you did advise as a battalion commander, is that what you said? And would have been their job to tell the staff, the rest of the firefighters?
I'm not sure, I just notified them what we found.
I'm just trying to, we've got to.
That I was investigating. If I went and pulled everything out of service that somebody came up to me and said was out of service, we wouldn't be able to do anything.
All right, well, I'm just trying to understand the correlation between what you did, is it really in a fulfillment of something that should have gotten done, it didn't get done, and the chief's saying it didn't get done, but maybe it should have got done, maybe it wasn't necessarily you, but it didn't get down the chain of command, that's what I'm bringing up, so.
My question about, when you noticed this, the bottle, I mean, is there a procedure and was someone supposed to have been checking this routinely that?
Well, I was kind of pointing out the flaw in that system.
Okay, so it's a procedure.
Because we check those at least monthly on the truck check, so, but apparently we haven't been checking to see if, that issue was on those bottles.
So the truck checks were happening, but somehow
Doesn't specifically state, it does now, but it does, before this, it didn't specifically state to check that.
So at some point in the past it stated that?
They're due every 5 years, so the last time this happened, we had some that were probably 10 years out of date, and Chief Crump went and bought all their bottles, that's why this ended up being kind of all out at the same time, so. So it wasn't on a check sheet, it wasn't in the past or now.
So it never has been on the check sheet?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So, could you explain exactly what happened? So when you sent this out, did you take, I'm sorry, I don't understand your lingo. Did you take all the vehicles out of?
I didn't take anything out of service. By Michigan, or by county, State of Michigan, the bottles were technically out of service because they're past hydrostatic date. They need to be on the truck, so the truck's out of service if they're not. So I didn't take anything out of service, I just said that they were out of service.
DOT standards is what identifies the hydrostatic test on oxygen bottles. State of Michigan says we have to have oxygen bottles on our vehicles to be considered a transporting agency. Because they were out of hydrostatic test date and were taken out of service or could be removed from the trucks, without the bottles, we couldn't be considered a transporting ELS or transporting DLS unit.
Is this the first time that you've had any feelings about something not going right between you and Captain Collin?
No, sir.
Okay. Is this the first time any incident like that has ever really occurred?
As far as vehicles.
Well,
being taken out
something of the
service
subject,
or
yeah.
conflict.
Again, I'm only looking at my experience in the military and how I might have handled my relationship with my chain of command, my lower guys. You know, before I put them up for a court martial or execution or whatever. I would usually try to see if I can resolve that incident, you know, with a discussion, et cetera. That's all I'm saying, okay? I don't want, what I'm concerned about is trying to heal the wounds that seemingly exist right now. My comments are only trying to make sure we pull the department and you and the team back together, okay? That's why I'm saying this, okay? So I don't know if you've had some discussions on this that may have just put this to bed with a private meeting or not. So that's my concern.
We've had 2 previous meetings on responses, interactions between Captain Conley and I. Anytime that I'm having issues with any individual, I like to pull them aside, find out what the problem is, find out if we can find some sort of resolution. We did have a meeting after the 2 previous incidents. I told him this can't be tolerated. We gotta come up with a solution. I've informed him that I'm available, cell, office, email, stop by my house, call me, I'll stop by your house.
Okay. Have you had incidents where you and the chief have discussed things about?
We've had
something like
discussions
that?
about our communication between each other, and he
Okay.
mentioned that if I had that attitude in front of firefighters, that there would be an issue.
All right.
And also, this came about because prior to this, the fire extinguishers on those same trucks were out of date for over a month and a half, thus being the same thing. So, which was brought up and discussed
All right,
for a long period of time.
So you had a previous discussion to the chief about the fire extinguishers being out of.
For fire extinguishers, this happened to be another thing we found.
Okay.
Same thing. I was afraid that the same thing was going to happen.
Okay.
Fire extinguishers need to be checked annually.
Okay. Did he advise you of that? Did
No, he didn't. Lieutenant Center set up the company that we've used in the past to come out and do a service on our vehicles. He called, scheduled it, never showed up. Not paying attention to it. I never caught him on it.
Okay,
We did have to eventually reach out to him again, have him come out, and he did finally get, kind of. He got the extinguisher serviced. One of the firefighters during the inspection found that he wasn't doing what he had written on paper. So we had to call him back
He
out.
being who?
With a fire extinguisher service company.
The
An
service.
unreliable company.
All right, okay, all right. So they didn't do their job effectively ultimately.
Correct.
All right, so the problem,
But the key point is he's Captain Connolly's absolutely right. They were supposed to be serviced at this point, they weren't serviced, and it went 5 weeks beyond before we finally got them serviced.
okay, so some communication is obviously breaking down a bit to make sure some of these things are identified, okay? I mean, I don't know Captain Connolly personally, I mean, I see him and we say hi to one another once in a while, as I say all the firemen. Is this something that can be healed and move on from here? Between the two of you? Because that, whether this goes away or not, can the relationship between the two of you be healed? That's what's at stake, as far as I can see, okay?
As I told Captain Connolly when I issued the discipline, this is the toughest part of the fire chief position is discipline and conflict. I believe during the conversation, I said, let's put this in the past, water under the bridge, let's move on. I have no issues putting this in the past and moving on.
if this went away and we said we're gonna let this go, can the two of you get back together and get on the same page? Because that's what's at stake right now. Whether we approve this or reject this, can the two of you get back in harmony? Because that's what I see. I mean, I can look at faces and I can understand those things, and you got a lot of folks here, I don't know what they're from, they're here obviously to support or whatever. That's what's at stake. Okay, I mean, you made a request for a reprimand. He's got some points that I might consider maybe valid. You've got some points that are obviously valid, okay? If you're communicating and he's asked you some things over 2 or 3 times and these aren't getting fixed, that's a problem in itself, whether you have a discipline letter or not. If you're not getting together and making things better, the relationship is not good. Okay, and that's not gonna help fight fires. That's my concern, so I'm gonna stop talking at this point. I would like to see this healed and put to bed and have a fresh start. That's what I would like to see. I don't wanna come down and get in the middle of concerns where you have something going on that's not right within the department. And I think most of the guys would understand that. If you guys don't work in harmony, what happens?
We have to
Firefighters,
have
what
each
happens?
other's back.
You either work as a team or you don't, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Okay, I'd like to just kind of throw something out here.
Hamlet, if
Yes.
I may. Captain Conley has, from my observation, done a very good job of presenting his position in writing. I mean, well-written statement of his appeal. I just handed it to the chief. I'm not sure he's had a chance to totally digest that. The ordinance and your personnel policy don't really provide a ton of guidance on an appeal like this. They simply say there's a right to appeal to the township board, and we know that the captain would like you to reverse the reprimand. There's nothing that would prevent you from postponing a decision on this to your next meeting. And there's nothing that would prevent Captain Conley and Chief Chapman in between now and then talking through this, and there's nothing that prevents Chief Chapman from changing what he's done already. If he were to do that and do it in a manner that was acceptable to Captain Conley, the board would not have to make a decision at all. That would facilitate what Mr. Salvia is suggesting.
I'm strongly
And
suggesting that.
I would think it would be a very much preferred approach than for the board to find itself having to make a decision on something that's really an internal fire department matter. And if it can stay that way and the board doesn't have to make a decision, I think that would be the best course of action, if it's acceptable to the captain. I mean, you can postpone the decision to a later meeting, whether he agrees or not, but on the chance that the chief and the captain can talk through this and maybe resolve it between themselves, it's always better.
Okay. Well, I do want to continue with my
Sorry to interrupt.
comment. I'm going to use a little analogy that occurred to me when I spent some time working at the library. When you do things in print, whether they be typewritten or whatever, we have these automatic things that say, is that person, what are they saying to me? I handwrite everything in capital letters.
Which is yellow.
So I left a note to somebody at the library that I would like to see them take care of something. The only pen I had available was red, and I taped it to their station. The next day, I hear about, man, you really were, that was a terrible way to deal with this. And I went, with what? All I asked them to do was to pick up the trash that, was blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's the way you said it. I look at it and I go, would you please pick up the trash? I mean, the way you said it was how it came out in print. And what I'm getting at is emails are the hardest thing to not push limits or tone. Everybody reads things differently. If you're the, quote, victim of an email, in other words, you read it and you feel you're a victim, and in this case, I'm going to say the chief reads this and says, ooh, the tone in that thing is kind of raw. From a position of responsibility in my spot, there's a lot of things that I know people think I should be taking care of, and I haven't maybe accomplished in a manner or time that those individuals feel, but you have to look at the overall position, the overall job, and the responsibility level there. There is tone in this email. It would be easier to go face to face. I know that if I go face to face with somebody and there's a little bit of agitation, maybe the decibels go higher, but at least it's a conversation. And at least you have the opportunity to go, well, I didn't really mean it that way. So what happens is, when I read this email, I kind of, whew, that was pretty blunt. Not saying it didn't need to be blunt. What came out of it for me was, holy smokes, what are the reasons? We don't know, as you guys are learning, this township board isn't in your shoes.
We don't have a clue what goes on.
We don't know what goes on. We are not paramilitary, or however you want to put it. We don't run that way. I don't think any of us, except for Joe, have been in the military to even understand that process. That process is definitely different. And so how things are handled are going to be different than the way I would handle it, or the way the chief might handle it, or how you guys handle it as captains, and your subordinates. And so my point is, there was some stuff that happened here that shouldn't have happened. I don't think the intent should be to lay blame. The intent should be to solve. Don't let it happen again. I think your statement was valid and true, that these things, why are they there? Why weren't they fixed? These are good questions.
This email is from Chief, is that correct?
No, that's from Chandler.
Well, no,
Right here.
So what I'm getting at is,
He sent it to
if I look at the response that the chief had, and he used the word tone, I got that tone out of that. But I don't know you personally, and I would have looked at it and go, maybe he's the kind of person who's just blunt and official, goes at things, bulldog full force. If we had the conversation afterwards, then I could go, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Or maybe it would have come across to me as a tone issue. Worthy of a reprimand? I don't know, because I don't know some of the other things that are involved. But I think the point is, everybody should be careful with this email stuff. Don't use that as the tool, the only tool or the final tool to make communication. You need to be mouth to mouth or phone to phone, where you are communicating directly, because there's time lag. There's all kinds of things that happen with these electronic communications. But if you're answering the phone, or you drive to his house or one of the other guys' houses and make it happen, that's the way you probably should handle it. And I don't take this as a reprimand, because I'm not reprimanding. I think that this is serious stuff. And I think that it's one of those things where if all the equipment's out of service, how can we go on a run? We could, but if something happened, you could have a township, a bankrupt township, So I think what I'm getting at is, I agree with Joe, and I kind of follow through with our attorney's point of view. I think the better thing would be, let's throw a little time frame in here, and let's see if we can revisit the situation. And if you can come to some kind of an amends, then the board doesn't have to be put on the hot seat for something that we're really not even prepared to. We don't want to put anybody on the hot seat. I don't. I want to see all you guys working together. I know there's been issues. I'd like to see those issues go away. I don't understand them, because I don't know why they're where they're at. I'm not part of your team. I probably would never be accepted as a part of your team. That's the way I felt for a long time. So I've been trying my hardest to be a part of what you guys do and not be an impediment. And our board's been doing the same thing. We don't want to be an impediment, and we're not trying to run the fire department at all. We're trying to make the fire department as healthy as possible and as good as possible, and every one of you guys do phenomenal work, phenomenal jobs. The good part is, when the, excuse the terminology, but when the shit hits the fan, you guys all connect. But you can't have that 24/7, because eventually you'll kill each other, because you can't work that way all the time. So I would recommend that in the future, try and go one-on-one with individuals on a verbal basis and direct communication, and be careful with emails, because I've written emails that are very straightforward, and then somebody else reads it and goes, wow, that's pretty blunt. I didn't see it that way. I don't think you saw it that way. I'm hoping you didn't, because if you did, then there was a tone to it.
No, I didn't see it that way, and you're the first to say that there was a tone, second to say that there was a tone in that email.
But, you know, only because I'm thinking about what my position would be if I was the chief, and how that came across. It's like, I know what he's going through in terms of the amount of workload that he has and how many hours he spends. And I have expectations in my building that the individuals that work for me are there working to help everybody be successful. And we put a lot of load on a lot of people. My assistant Jenny here, she's overloaded. Yet I have to be responsive to a whole bunch of other things. The chief's the same way. So we have to depend on our subordinates. And we have to hope that the subordinates are not looking at it from a positioning point of view. In other words, you know, the kind of thing. Whatever that's about, I don't know. But so I would be careful on emails or any written stuff, only because maybe that is something that can be easily misinterpreted. Your words are very direct. And the word tone, that's an interpretation. It's an essence or a feeling. And so consequently, what I may detect as a tone, somebody else might look at that, oh no, that's the way it should be. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I thought it was a little bit blunt, more than a little bit. I thought it was very blunt, but I don't know the rest of the dynamics that are underlying that. So,
So what do you suggest we do when the face-to-face doesn't work?
Well, had you guys discussed this issue before?
Which particular issue? This?
Yes.
No, not this particular one, but one just previous to it we've been discussing for 5 weeks.
So what if we, I'm sorry, Tammy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, after the first time when it was discovered that the fire extinguishers were out of date, was it discussed, okay, we need to look at our check sheets and make sure they're all inclusive? So I'm assuming chief isn't responsible for inspection of the trucks, correct?
Well, ultimately, yeah.
Yes, but there's somebody else who actually does it.
The duty crew do it for their shift checks.
The duty crew. Okay.
I just want to make one comment. In Captain Connolly's defense and all my officers' defense, they all work 9-to-5 jobs. Generally, I don't see them except on nighttime runs or extended runs, structure fires, CPR runs at night. We have to rely on email communications. That's one of the biggest tools we can use to communicate amongst most of the command staff.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that verbalization would be a good asset to add to it if there's questions about how it might be stated. So I don't feel comfortable personally making a decision at this point because
No, I mean, just communication, I can see that's kind of awkward. You know, he just said all our transporting trucks are out of service, you know, and you said that he took them out of service. So I see difference in words there, I'm not sure what that means, but he didn't say he took them out of service. He says our transporting trucks are out of service because they're obviously got a flaw with them. And Chief, you said, your email advisor, you had taken all Highland Township Fire Departments out of service. So the difference in words, okay, maybe you think that's what he did, maybe he was just saying they shouldn't go because they're really not, they're not ready to go. So I see small words in here that are not good. What I see here is a bigger concern that bothers me in the chain of command, okay? We have some conflicts going on. I would recommend, I would make a motion to table this discussion. I would like to meet with both of you at some time this can be, because I think when you two talk alone, you need somebody else to be with you, okay? I'm not trying to babysit this project, but sometimes you gotta get somebody involved that will try to sort some things out. We need to heal the wound, okay, whatever it is. We're building some wounds on some technical things that may or may not have been correct or not correct, okay? And it's surfaced to this level. And the department is not gonna run on all 4 cylinders or 8 cylinders or whatever unless we heal this kind of stuff. And I'm speaking for all of you guys out there because everybody's gotta work together. There's no time in this organization for debates, and challenges, etc. Because if you don't work together, it's not gonna work. So my motion would be to table this to see if we can get it toned down and see if we can get some healing going between what's going on. And that's no disrespect to you, Chief, what you put together. I think you're a great guy. I know all the guys. I know most of the guys on the fire team, and we gotta fix this. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So I make a motion to table this, and we need to meet as soon as possible. Okay. In the meantime, if we're not meeting, I need to be assured that you guys will work together regardless of what happened just now. What are the chief's comments and your responding comments that have to get set aside? You need to be able to get to work tomorrow on the next date and get things done, okay? And you gotta drop it, because right now you got a hot potato and it's not getting fixed too easy, so that's my motion.
Mary Pat, did you want to?
I just was gonna ask Captain Conley, what kind of a resolution you would like to see from this, or going forward would be that we would put procedures, or in the department, you have procedures, amend the ones you have, or more detailed, or, what do you think?
Are you talking in general, in the write-up that happened, or?
I'm talking about procedures, so that, the kind of issues like that, where we know who's doing what and.
Well, those have been added to the duty checks now, to check those dates for when.
So that's a positive thing that came out of this.
It's a positive. That was one of the intentions of the email, was to get positive results out of it, because the face-to-faces aren't working. So.
And I understand.
And everybody here knows that I'm all about safety, safety, safety. And when stuff's not being safe, that's where I draw the line. And I don't care whose feathers I ruffle or whose way I get in. If my guys aren't safe, that's where I draw the line.
And I can
Face-to-face
see
wasn't working.
The emails too, that if that's the only way that you can communicate, that does make things more difficult for you, right? And
Have actions been taken on those 5 items, on your email to the chief? Chief, are those things getting under control?
The O2 bottles, yes.
Items not being checked, no proper procedure for checking them, no proper maintenance or logs. I don't understand our safety and the safety of our patients are not the highest priority. What does that mean?
Just justification of the DOT guidelines that they're supposed to be hydrostatically tested to make sure they're not going to rupture.
Okay.
The shrapnel to our staff.
And then why are we filling and owing these bottles?
Owning.
Owning or owing? Okay, it says owing, okay. So we own the bottles and it's our responsibility to fill them, and our recommendation is we should just get them already done, ready, shipped to us, ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've evaluated that process. The rental on the O2 bottles was cost prohibitive. When I first got there, we had a cascade system that went into a 5-gallon bucket that had a little bit of water in it, that we'd set the O2 bottles in, fill the bottles up, pull them out. Anytime you put compressed air into a cylinder, it creates heat, potential for damage if you fill it too fast. Since then, we've gotten a device that goes into our SCBA fill area. We connect the bottle to the O2 fill, slide it into the explosion-proof container, closed container, and then fill it.
Okay, so we have some resolution on that versus renting, okay. All right.
Sort of.
Okay. All right, well, okay.
All right, well,
I have a motion on the floor to table this action at this time. And I think that maybe one or more of us want to sit with both of them because this has to get resolved.
I'll support the motion so we can have a vote on it.
okay, I
My only
wanna,
comment on all of this is that it was not clear to me either what the discipline was for. Was it for the tone that he used, or was it for something that he did that was improper? So I think, you know, the communication needs to be more clear that way too. And maybe this will resolve itself without that, if you two can meet with Mr. Selby, if you're in agreement with that. Both of you, yay,
I
nay?
have no issue, yep, fine with that.
Mr. Conley?
And I can do it after hours.
We can try it.
Okay.
All right, well, I mean, again, if we don't get the attitude straight, we're in trouble, okay, one way or the other. You know, whether we do this or not do this, I see a definite breach in relationship right now. I sense it, I feel it, you know, it's easy to read, so. My motion's on the floor to table this at this time, pending
And seconded.
a discussion with.
Is that to a date certain or after a event?
Right.
well, we're gonna have to set it to the next board meeting.
Do you want to set it for the next board meeting?
This item, yeah.
Unless it resolves itself and we don't need to.
Yeah, that may also be it, yeah.
Have one.
By the next board meeting.
There's still
so
discussion.
they could be resolved by mutual consent, that everything is
Okay,
getting
Judy's got
better.
some stuff she'd like to talk about too.
Huh?
You got a motion and
I'm not
support,
getting-
so we got a discussion.
So Captain Conley, I'm not getting from you, what kind of resolution would work for you? And that's what I guess my bottom question is. So what would work? I mean, even if we voted in your favor to take it out, is that gonna solve the problem?
It'll solve the problem of a unjustified, inadequate write-up. Yeah, I'm worried that other people are getting the same thing done to them that won't stand up to it. So
And-
that'll solve that problem, part of it, yeah.
And how's that gonna work for your working relationship?
We work fine still. We got a job to do, we get it done. Bottom line,
Okay, just a question,
that's what we do. We just had a fire this morning.
right?
And anytime that I've sent Captain Connolly's our IT person for the department, anytime I've sent any issues since the write-up, I mean, he's taken care of deleting people off the payroll cycle, he's taken care of any issues. We can work together, I don't see an issue with it. This is
In the military, we had an opportunity for the E1s, the E2s, the E3s to report one level up, okay, and vice versa. Do we have that in this organization?
no, we can't do that with our organization only because, again, we're a paid-on-call system. A lot of the command staff is working daytime jobs and they're not around to report to, so you could look at extending time periods for reporting out.
Well, what I'm saying is that if someone had a grievance, the lowest guy in the poll had a grievance, he needs to be able to talk to somebody about that, okay? And if his grievance is about you, and this level of chain of command, he needs somewhere to go. Who's the newest guy out there? Guy or girl? Over there, okay. If he's got a problem, with his next in line, who does he go to?
Station officers.
Okay. So, is that happening?
Yes.
Say again?
Yes.
It is happening, okay.
Depends on the,
Okay, we need to, that's got to happen, because if there's hurt somewhere, the healing has to come from somebody, okay? And that has to go all the way up the chain, okay? And if you have a grievance with the chief, then you need to go somewhere so that we can then, whoever the next level is, that's the supervisor, we need to get to that point to see if we can fix these things, okay? Otherwise, nobody knows, okay? We can't let stuff lie dormant, okay?
it's also gotta go down the chain as well, correct?
Well, obviously, it's gonna be done, but I'm looking for somebody who has to say something that can't get it out because they're worried about something, so, okay. Anyways, that's my motion, so.
It's already been supported, so anybody else have any other questions or things they wanna discuss? All right, vote.
I vote.
What's the motion?
In
The
support.
motion is to table the issue until the December 13th
Board meeting.
board meeting
Okay.
if necessary.
Okay.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, I would further add that, although this is a busy week for things that I'm personally involved with, as veterans activities, I will be Saturday morning right over there. Either one of you available for Saturday morning at 9 o'clock or something like that, 9:30?
Probably.
I'll be there.
Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to push your schedule, I'm just trying to make sure I know when I'm gonna physically be able to sit with you, even if we just sit and start to think about what we're gonna do, okay? So if you wanna say 9 o'clock, 9:30, what's good for you?
Well, ceremony starts at 10, I would say 9 o'clock would probably be.
9 o'clock, okay, 9 o'clock, all right. So, in
We
the
have
meantime,
Conference Station.
I would ask you both to do what you can to try to get back in the dance, okay? And when we talk Saturday, we'll see how we can get that, keep it moving, okay? Thank you.
All right, next item is, thank you,
Thank you for
Chandler,
coming.
for coming up.
Thank you.
Next item is list of
He was in
bills.
the station today, oh.
We're all here.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right. What else we got?
List of bills.
List of bills.
All right, plus add-ons. You wanna make a
I
motion?
had a question on the cemetery. What did we, why and which cemetery did we have surveyed?
West Highland.
And why?
Because when Tammy and Dawn and I went out there to look at cleaning the cemetery up, there was no way we could tell where the property lines were, and we want to fence the cemetery. And especially on the north side, when we found out that there's graves that are actually in the woods that you wouldn't suspect to be there. And so the only way you can tell where that cemetery lines are is to have a survey done. So we have a survey done. Now we know where they're at, and their stakes are set too, so. And then when we have a fence put in, they can be put in on the appropriate property lines.
I would move to approve the list of bills plus add-ons.
You were waiting for that one.
I'll support. Vote please.
Mr. Savia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, public comment? Is that all you got to say?
Man.
All
We're
right,
out.
on that one. Huh?
I have one thing.
Okay, Tammy's got something.
I had the privilege to go out to the West Highland Cemetery with a youth group from Highland United Methodist Church on Saturday and spend an hour and a half out there. They came and worked on taking some bushes that had completely hidden and obscured several headstones and hacked them back so that the headstones can now be seen, and there were several places around where that was the case, and so now those are visible to the public if they come to visit, and it was a great honor to serve with them.
Oh, that's great. Mike mentioned something about that at the meeting last night too and told us.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
A good experience for the kids too.
Yeah.
All right. On that
One
note-
to the west.
Yes,
Oh,
Chief.
sorry.
Just one thing real quick. Friday at the Wheel, they're doing the second annual No Child Out of Christmas fundraiser, starting at 8, going till midnight. Tons of prizes, lots of fun. The owner is donating a certain percentage of sales for the night to the Highland Goodfellows also, so.
And that's
This Friday?
This Friday. Haley, one of the young ladies from my department, has been kind of organizing all this, putting this on, going out and getting donations from different businesses. We've got anything, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I
Haley
missed.
Kenwood.
One of the
Right
firefighters.
Anyways, she's gotten vacuums and two brand new still leaf, gas powered blowers, all kinds of stuff. Just some top-notch prizes. Come one, come all, and all those are a good cause.
So that's a wheel, what time?
8 to midnight
8 to midnight.
on Friday.
Okay. All right. Yes.
I just wanted to throw out there with this incident and misunderstandings and things, with everything that's going on in the news and everything too, and all these people coming forward with all these allegations about people and harassment and stuff, that I just think we all need to be really, really aware of that and really be respectful towards each other. And I'm not saying that anybody isn't, but I just think that's something we all need to really, really pay attention to. So, that's it.
Agreed.
It does get easier.
Yes, Missy.
West Highland Cemetery, I get them mixed up, is that the one on Hickory Ridge?
Correct.
Okay, alright, so it's further
West.
okay.
Across the street from West Highland Baptist.
Okay.
All right, is that it? All right, meeting's adjourned at 9:16.
Yeah.
I tell for sure. Facebook,
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Granddaughter. That was camping up. Granddaughter, grandson. Travel trailer bed. Looking out the window. I don't have any dreams.
Oh, I know. I just put a bit in his cheeks.
Oh, you're at the game Saturday?
I was. I didn't stay.
My son-in-law's there, stayed with a bitter end.
No, we.
And he got good seats when they finally went back in, because everybody left and got really good
I
seats.
watched the end of that game from the comfort of
What's her name again? My kid's favorite books I used to read.
I said, why the kid wanted
So you did get some camping in this year?
the last big hurrah we had. They were talking about our going dark flood.
The outline and you can cut it off here.
September 3rd, at, Algonac,